It's very serious. I know, Willie, like me, you were really concerned by what happened yesterday in the briefing, Pete Hegseth, when our fallen warriors were brought up, and the Secretary of Defense and the spokesperson for the White House yesterday acted like even mentioning these fallen heroes' names was like a slur against the president. They actually tried to make the death of American troops about Donald Trump. It was one of the most childish. It was just so childish. Proved once again, Pete Hegseth's not. He's nowhere near prepared to be Secretary of Defense. He's emotionally not there. He's not there in every other way. But these are our fallen heroes. And the suggestion that we should be like Vladimir Putin and just ignore when American heroes die in uniform while serving this country. This is not. Keep those pictures up of those American heroes. This is not about Donald Trump. This is about these heroes and the families and the friends and the loved ones who mourn them.
Willie, just to Joe's point, in that briefing yesterday, which Jonathan Lemire and I covered, yes, we need to talk about Pete Hegseth and the president. But when the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, took to the podium, it is the first thing he talked about.
Of course.
It is the first thing he talked about. And he talked about grief and gratitude and dedication to this country, which is how you start one of those briefings. And I remember thinking, watching Pete Hegseth, going, how childish is this? Is this language he's using?
Yeah.
And this sort of bro-centric, tough guy, we sunk their battleship. It was pathetic, but also embarrassing.
Well, and General Kane came out and he understands. These are fallen warriors. They have given their life in defending this country. And they're not suckers. We don't believe they're suckers. So only somebody who would believe that they're suckers, like the Atlantic reported, would treat fallen warriors, the mere mention of their names or the fact that they died in service of this country, as something dirty or something aimed at Donald Trump. Not about Donald Trump. It's about their sacrifice, Willie. Something you've been in that community. Something you have seen up close.
Yeah, well, General Kane, as you say, understands. He understands that it's about honor and dignity and gratitude for the lives of those men. Pete Hegseth, on the other hand, views this as a political problem or a PR problem, saying the fake news is just trying to make Donald Trump look bad, making him look bad by putting the names and pictures of fallen American service members on the front page of newspapers or talking about them on shows like this. That was an extraordinary moment from a man in Pete Hegseth who has served, presumably gets it, but now is so captured by politics, so captured by his loyalty to Donald Trump that he thinks job one is to be the spokesperson and apologist for Donald Trump and to attack the news media and to attack any critic of Donald Trump. That is not your job as Secretary of Defense. Conduct the war alongside more experienced people, thank goodness, like General Kane. But he views himself as the spokesperson. He's not that different from Caroline Leavitt in the White House press secretary's podium yesterday, where she was challenged, guys, on these questions as well, saying, what are you talking about? That we're trying to make the president look bad. We are reporting the deaths of U.S. service members. And President Trump, by the way, has said there will be more, and we will report those too.
Well, and again, we're not Russia. We don't just throw people at the front lines when they die, pretend they didn't die. We honor our fallen heroes, and we think and we pray for the families of Cody and Nicole, Noah, Declan, and Declan, and the other two who gave their service.
The ultimate
and Robert,
sacrifice.
And the ultimate sacrifice to this country. Dana Perino said, I think last night on the 5, she said, hey, guys, just stop. Stop with your obsession on the media. They're covering this pretty much down the middle.
Yeah.
And let's remember, again, the fallen. And let's honor them, and let's pray for their families. There's nothing wrong with that, Pete.
Yeah.
Nothing. That's what we have been doing as a country for 250 years. We're not going to stop now because Donald Trump's president. So stop. Stop. Act like a man.
Well,
act like a man and honor fallen heroes instead of trying to make it about Donald Trump.
So